My first day in Turkey was definitely a memorable one. When I first started talking to the people, it was a good experience because I was surprised by so helpful and so kind, how kind they were. They absolutely love cats. I'm not too sure why, but they just love them. I don't know, I think cats are cool, but you just see them around the city sometimes, and even grown men, you can see them carrying some bags of cat food and just feeding them out on the streets and just petting them and stuff like that. So they like cats quite a bit. So as far as cultural do's and don'ts there, one thing that they don't like is they don't like seeing the bottom of your foot. And so if you were to like lift up your leg and just put it off to the side, they don't like to see that part. And so that can be that could be considered offensive to them. Say like someone says a sentence to you in Turkish and you don't understand it, you don't say what, so you don't say the Turkish word of ne, but you say like excuse me, like efendim or affedersiniz, or bunu tekrar söyleyebilir misin, or you say like you say something like that. So just saying like what, the word like what can be kind of offensive. It can be kind of like strong, so you don't say something like that. And that's something that we learned pretty quickly just by the reaction of saying that when we didn't understand something, which was quite a bit in the beginning. But as far as table manners go, there's this one thing that they like to do is they like to have soup with their meals. And when you're done eating your soup, what they like to do is like get pieces of bread and get all the residue off by soaking the bread in the residue soup and just leaving the bowl clean. And that's like a sign of kindness, and I can see why, because that has to make it easier for the wife to clean the bowl afterward. But it's just something that they like to do culturally. They're pretty accepting of strangers coming up and talking to them. It doesn't seem really weird to them. At first they might be shocked because they see a foreigner speaking Turkish, but after they get over that fact, the conversation goes pretty well. And so they don't seem too taken aback when you start talking to them randomly, but it's something they like. Sometimes people will go up and talk to you as well, and they're very kind of talkative people, and they enjoy having conversations and talking about things like football and other world news and things like that. So they're super friendly people, and they can notice that. If you're just trying to use them for something, they can easily detect that. But if you're nice and you want to help them or be their friend, then they'll be one of your greatest friends that you'll ever have. Sometimes you can just talk to someone for about 5 or 10 minutes, and just like that, you can instantly be best friends. Sometimes when we would talk to people, there'd be other Turkish people that would talk to each other as well. They'd say things like, you know, these Americans have pretty good Turkish, or wow, this is really cool. And so even they would start being friends with each other. Like if we would talk to two different people, those two Turks would start talking to each other as well and get each other's number, and it's just a very friendly environment. So as long as you're friendly and in Turkey, you'll be treated very well, and you'll make a lot of good friends there. So they have Ramazan, or they call it Ramazan there, but Ramadan. And that's pretty big. So we were there while they had that, and they fast during that time. They start fasting in the beginning of the day, so in the early morning hours. And then at the end of the day, they break their fast. And when Ramadan is over, they would have this really big feast. And that was their way of fasting is something that is important, and they can fast outside of that anyway, but fasting was something that really it was just an important part of their religion because it showed their devotion to God, and that's a pretty big sacrifice. So there's Ramadan. They have other religious holidays. They also have one specific to Turkey, such as the day that modern Turkey was founded, Ataturk's birthday. Ataturk is the founder of modern day Turkey, and he's a really big deal. And you can see him everywhere. People have pictures of him, and they talk about him all the time, and for good reason, because of him, Turkey is the place that it is today, and it's such a really good place. So there's a lot of veneration for him, and they like to celebrate his birthday, and that's a pretty big holiday for them as well. The food in Turkey is really, really good. I miss having it every day. Different areas of the country specialize in different foods. For example, if you go to a place called Adana, that's where the Adana kebab is from, and it's pretty much like a spicy kebab, and there's a lot of kebabs and a lot of döner meat. You've probably heard of it as like doner or döner meat or something like that, and what it is it's this slab of meat, but it's in a cylinder shape, And what they do is they put it on a spit and they slow cook it. And so when it's done cooking, they get this really big knife and they start cutting it. And that allows the next layer to continue to cook. And it's good because the meat, when you get it, it's always fresh and it's super good. And they put it in many different things. For example, you could have that kind of meat in like a wrap. They have their own kind of thing called dürums, which is kind of like a wrap or kind of like a burrito. But it's not like a Mexican burrito or anything like that, but they just stick stuff like chicken, it can be beef, and some vegetables like lettuce and french fries and things like that, and put some sauces in there too. It's really good. They also have really good desserts there, such as baklava. The best baklava that I've ever had has come from Gaziantep, or Antep as they call it. And it's so good because they cook it in this liquid. It's kind of like honey. And it's super sweet, and they put nuts in there, such as walnuts or pistachios. And that's one of my favorite things there. I like stuffed eggplant, which is something they call karnıyarık. And what it is they get this eggplant, and they fry it up. And what they do is they fill it up with this ground beef, and they mix it with this sauce. And they put some herbs in it as well. And it's just really good because you have that along with pilav, which is the rice that they have. And also this cold cucumber dill soup that's mixed with yogurt called cacık, and that's a really good combination right there. And that's probably my favorite meal in Turkey, but there's just so many good things that you can eat there. For example, there's also another one called it's been called Turkish pizza. There's two different kinds. There's called lahmacun, which is pretty much you get this, it's kind of like a tortilla, but they call it lavash. And they get some red sauce with it. They put some meat, whether it's beef or lamb meat, and they mix it all together. They put some vegetables with that too. And on top of that, you can put more lettuce on it, maybe some tomatoes, sprinkle some lemon juice on it, and you just wrap it up and eat it. And that's a really good snack. The other kind of Turkish pizza is called pide. It's kind of like a lahmacun, but it's different because they use cheese with it, and they top it off with some peppers or just some other kind of meat. They did have this one thing called kokoreç, and what it is it's stuffed sheep intestines, and I could never get around to eating that. I could never eat that just because, I don't know, it didn't seem too appealing, but there are definitely really good things out there. I guess one weird thing that I had was just sheep liver, and that tasted pretty good actually. At first it tasted different just because it's liver, but that's probably the craziest thing that I had there. Understanding Turkish at first was really difficult just because the language is so different from English. The grammar is completely different. For example, if you want to say, I'm going to church, you could say something, it would translate like, to church I am going, or to church going I am, or something like that. It's kind of like Yoda speaking a little bit, but it's just backwards in that sense. There aren't too many foreigners that learn Turkish, and so they were super excited to see a group of Americans just speaking Turkish with them, speaking their language, and that meant a lot to them.